All right, everybody, welcome back to RCT Creations. We are back at Funland, and we are in March, well, late February, almost March of the 2000 season, so it's the first edition for the new decade. And just for a frame of reference for when this recording is happening, as of right now, it is the first quarter of the Chiefs-Texans Sunday Night Football game. I am still reeling from Matt Campbell deciding to leave Iowa State football. I've mentioned before how I disliked Iowa and Nebraska. Unfortunately, I am an Iowa State football fan, and our 10-year coach decided to take off for Pennsylvania State. But we're going to try to soothe some of that pain with a little bit of coaster building here with the Fun Corporation. So a little off topic to get started, but let's hop on into this. For the 2000 season, we're going to build an Intamin Family coaster. So this track is the mini coaster track. We are going to use it for this ride. And this is the first time I think I want to kind of have a station be part of the initial build. So I'm going to pause the game. So the guests, this is going to pop up really quick to the guests here. But first I kind of want to get an idea of how long a 10-car or 12-car train is, because I want it to be 12 cars long. Let's determine how much space I need for that. So I should be able to do that with one less station tile. Yep, that looks like it fits about perfectly. And then the trains I'm using for this ride are, I downloaded them. I can't remember where I got them from, so I apologize for that. If I find it, I'll put it in the description of the video or in one of the comments. But these are just streamlined trains. And I wanted to put an Intamin Family coaster here. I decided on these because I wanted to have kind of long trains like a Ziera Tivoli coaster would, but have it be designed by Intamin. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, Intamin was kind of doing some weird things. They made a coaster called Cop Car Chase, which had like 4 passenger cars that were connected together, and it dueled itself, had two inversions, had a loop and like a weird 0G barrel roll thing. But Intamin was doing some weird stuff about this time, so we're going to kind of try to emulate that. So we know we need about 6 tiles for the station, although I might expand that just a little bit because I want to have the queue be a little bit more involved with this ride. So let's do that. I want to try to reuse as much of the queue for Mini-Mania as I possibly can, because this is the same plot. Except rather than just use the same plot, we're going to kind of go off to the side here. So let's do the yellow queue. I want this. I want that there, and I also want the exit path to be connected to the station building. So this is what I want the station building to be, so I might just frame it out real quick with these kind of plain walls here. And unfortunately, I put the right where I probably shouldn't have. Those construction barriers. So this guy right here with the yellow balloon is going to be really surprised when I unpause the game and there's like a whole new building and whole new coaster here. But I like the idea a lot. So we want one level. I want one level of queue right here, potentially, and so I can hook an overflow in right in here. I just tried to point at the screen. Did not work at all. Then potentially I want to be able to do a set of overflow queue on this level right here. So I kind of want to have it stacked on top. Like so. So I think what I'll do is just build this overflow queue space in right now. So let me hook up the queue I want. So we have the staircase. And let's hook this in here. And I want to make sure I potentially leave room for the exit stairs as well. So we have that. We can have this curve back over, and it's going to look kind of weird right now, but that's okay. So I should, depending on which side I put the entrance on, so if I put the entrance on this side, I can make it work, I think. I could potentially have this go underneath. I want to leave that. I want to leave this area potentially for the exit path to come back down. So actually, I think I want to make this building a little bit wider. So let's do that. So we're going to get rid of a little bit of this extra cube, but that's okay. And we're going to add this all in here. So now the cube will enter the building here instead. And this first part is a little dry. I know we want to get to the coaster as soon as possible, but I also kind of want to get this set up here in a way I like. So we can put the stairs here, and that gives us this extra tile of space here for the exit path. So tell you what, to get this, let me get the cube path set up first to the height we want it at. So this is good for one space, and that is the height of the station, height of the entrance we want to be. So let's say we put the entrance right there. Let's, oops, did not mean to mute the game. We could put the station right here. So that's the exit of the station. 6 station tiles is just enough for the train. And then at dispatch, I kind of want the train to go over that section right there. So I think I'm going to have to get rid of one more piece here. There we go. So let's go with that. I'll put that fence back in, and I think I might leave that beige piece back there to make it look more filling. I kind of like that look right there with the kind of tan wooden fence behind the Candyland style fence. I think that looks pretty good. So this might take a little bit of land modification, but that's okay. So there's our 6 station pieces. And then the track can go out there. I mean, honestly, I think I might even have that station piece go up one more. And that was a mistake. There we go. So let's put the station up one more tile. It's going to be really high in the air, like comedically high. But you know what? That's okay. With Intamin coasters, you can kind of take some creative liberties because they kind of just did whatever they wanted to. But the idea of a curved drop right off the station, I really like, and that was kind of my initial vision for this ride, is to have it start with this curve and go straight into a drop. I think we're going to keep that as best we can. Whoopsies. So with that being the case, we're going to need this path to go up one more. And then link up with the station, with the entrance right there. Then our exit can kind of go wherever. I'll probably put it toward the back because that's usually where I put the exits. But let's continue with kind of our exit plan, or our entrance queue path design here. And then we have to figure out how we're going to get the exit path out of here as well. Which doesn't seem like it'd be a hugely difficult task, but it's I think it's going to be. Because I kind of want everything to be contained within this building. And this is kind of the, when I pre-design my coasters in my design world, this is kind of the dry part I want to leave out, but at the same time, I also kind of want to show what my created, like, kind of my process looks like. And it's gonna be a journey, but we'll power through it, I think. So I think the exit path is going to be the most important, because this is going to be... There we go. So there's our exit path. We've got that placed. And I'm pretty happy with that. I'll use that as just our no entry barrier, because this is one where I don't necessarily want guests going in to the ride. And then we can link that back up right there. And then we could potentially just have this drop straight up. So guests aren't really going to get a good look at the boarding station, but that kind of lends itself to a little bit of a mystery, which I think is perfectly fine. And then what I can do is maybe put in these metal barriers. And I really like the look of these. I use them for my catwalks, but I like the look of them for just base station tiles as well. So I think we're going to follow up with that in as many places as possible. And I've already changed my mind. We're going to use base blocks. Yep, and they're like the drywall ones. So inside the station, we'll use base blocks just because it's going to match the walls a little bit better. I want to put these everywhere I can because this is like the roof of the station. I just want to frame out what I do and don't need here. So with that all in place now, let's see through it and see through rides. Whoops. See through rides, see through scenery, and now we can kind of get working on our queue path here. So the first overflow is going to be permanent. There's really not going to be a good way for me to get rid of this. So I think we're just going to get it placed. I don't want it to necessarily be under the station a whole lot because there's a lot of kind of technical components you really don't want to get in the way here. So that overflow is going to be permanent. But I think what I can do is put an overflow down here. So actually, I'm going to use the cutaway view. I just want to see inside this station. Oopsies, there we go. So that right there is perfect. So let's kind of get our queue separator in. Just like that. And we can build an overflow just like that. And then for all the parts we don't necessarily want the guest to be able to see, we can do something like that. Actually, we can do that. Perfect. And then we can do the same right here. It doesn't have to be like entirely on the inside, just what you can see from the outside, because I mean, this is going to be invisible to us, although I will wall off that exit path there. And then let's potentially give our guests something to look at in the queue line. I don't think I could do a couple of these candy pieces. I really don't want to, though. Oh, let's use some of this mechanical theming. Just like that. I'm about to get rid of that piece. I don't really want to do that. But what that allows me to do is put in kind of a false floor here. So we'll leave that gear kind of on the same path in the same space. But what I'm going to do is now I'll put some of these steel pieces at the bottom here, just like that. And that'll give guests in line just something to look at, potentially. And I think I want to do more than one, so we'll do one here. Which way is that going to spin? Other way. So we want this little guy to go down, and then this one to go up. Like that. Just like that. So it's not much, but it's something. It's kind of like the Dick Kinsel era Cedar Fair style theming, where you put a couple of boxes inside the queue line. But it's something for the guests to look at, so I guess can't complain too much in theory. So let's get this just loaded with queue TVs. Of course, skip the spots where we're gonna potentially remove queue, and then we'll work our way up to the next level. And this is always going to be open, so you're always going to walk around this way. And my inspiration for this style of queue is Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. I really like the way that station is layered, because when you enter the queue for that ride, you walk down this absolutely huge hill. But then you get into the station building, and you walk through the first set of overflow queue, which is the bottom floor or ground floor of that station building. And you just work your way up, and I think it looks really, really cool. But outside of that, we're just going to use walls to kind of hide the stuff in there that we don't necessarily want guests to see. And then we're going to steal some of our coloring, because I still want this ride to fit in with the original theme for this area. And I'm doing a lot of the fitting out part first, because I wanted to see how this queue would work and if I could make it work. But I think for as far as the layout goes, we're just going to leave it like that. It doesn't look good. Doesn't look pretty. It's functional. Kinda. But I think when we get to the fitting out area, we'll make that look way better. Okay. On to the actual layout part. Again, with Intamin in this era, you can kind of do whatever you want. And if you ever wonder what my favorite kind of coaster to build in RCT is, and there's a lot of them on my channel, it's going to be the Arrow custom loopers, because Arrow just kind of did whatever they wanted, and I really respect that about them. You can get so creative with those Arrow layouts, because I mean, Arrow did kind of whatever. There's the triple corkscrew coaster that I think was in Taiwan. That was just weird. There's there's Dragon Mountain at Marineland, which is unfortunately it's currently standing but not operating, but I can't see it ever opening again. But I mean, you can just do weird stuff, and Intamin did some of that stuff early on too. So that's what's so fun about a ride like this, is you can kind of do whatever and just roll with it. But we're going to start with that drop out of the station, and then we'll work into a turn here. And I think we'll leave it like that, and I can level this land out as well. And I wanted to start it with maybe a little bit of a helix. Maybe give that a wider turn like so. So there's kind of our helix to start. Maybe get a couple of turns in here. But then I think I want to head into a brake run right about there. So that gives us a lot of momentum to play with. So let's kind of watch it and see how it reacts to the initial start here. So we have our dispatch from our station. We're going to drop into this turn off the hill, into a very low to the ground helix. Then we're going to angle our way over. And then as long as we have the momentum to make the mid-course, and we do at about the perfect speed, actually. So I want to make sure we have enough room for our train length here. So we're going to start with 1, and then we're going to do our station length. So if for whatever reason there was a valley, we'd have the extra tile. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for our brakes. And I think we're going to do that, and then we're going to go into our lift hill right here. So our lift hill is actually going to be pretty far out here. And then keeping in mind, I only want this to be a 1 lift hill coaster. So our only lift is going to be all the way out here. And our return point is 20 feet in the air all the way back here. We want to have some sort of a layout. And we want this to be a family coaster. So there's our station height. I'm thinking maybe we can try to go... I think 60 feet should be pretty good. So we'll kind of give it a little bit of a leeway there. And I think I might actually do something more along the lines of their early coaster, like their mega coasters, I guess, or their hyper coasters. I wanted to do something like this with kind of a steep drop, but I don't think we're going to have the room. So we're going to go into a curve drop. So let's try to keep it close to the land, I think. So we'll go back underneath our station, and then maybe start angling back. And with it being a family coaster, it doesn't have to be the longest ride in the world either, which works to our benefit. And we'll reshape this mountain just a little bit. So we'll keep it running in the background here just so we kind of have an idea of what our ride looks like. And then maybe we give it one kind of thrill element. So maybe we do one kind of big drop here that heads into a turn. So it's not going to fly into the lift. We do want it to go pretty slow into the lift hill here. But we're going to have it head in. And we'll give it a quicker lift speed. I think the RCT 5 miles an hour works pretty well right here in this scenario. And the drop off the lift. It's going pretty quick, so not quite enough speed burned off there. So maybe we'll go up to 45 feet before we do this drop. And that's a little too extreme for a family coaster, so I think we'll avoid that. But maybe we'll go up. Not necessarily. I think we want to keep it somewhat low to the ground because we don't want the support cost to get insanely high. I think I might put the brakes in here. I'm not going to put a block section here. But we'll just slow it down to maybe 9 miles an hour heading into it. There we go. Potentially what we could do... So there's our 40. Then we could drop down into maybe another helix type section. Don't want it to be too intense. But, I mean, we don't want it to be too intense, but at the same time, in this era, you kind of had these coasters that did stuff like this that might have been a little more intense than what they should be. But that's also where you get some of your more unique coasters as well. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Have it go super low. I think I might want it to go be a little bit higher up in the air. So maybe like that. And then we'll do kind of an airtime hill and a drop into our helix, just like this. Then we could potentially go over the lift, like so, and drop back underneath the lift again. Here we're starting to find our rhythm, I think. So we get kind of this nice little figure eight. So let's see where we head with this. Keeping in mind I still have to do... I'll still have to do probably custom supports underneath. That's a much better speed, I think, for a family coaster to go. So I'm pretty happy with that. Then a more methodical turn over there. And a drop back down. And I think now we want to start heading back towards our station. So one thing I'm seeing here is this track is going to go directly over this car ride track. Isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, but it might be something I want to try to avoid a little bit. And then I'm also kind of trying to think about where I want our transfer track to go. So our transfer is definitely going to be with using the S-bend style. So let's get that placed in now. So we want it to start here. Oopsies. There we go. So we want that S-bend. And that lines up perfectly where we want it. So we want our transfer track to end right about here, just because that's where our equipment is going to be to load it onto the actual transfer track itself. And with it being this high in the air, you're going to want a little room for maybe a man lift or a forklift to, or even a JLG to lift your train cars onto the transfer, especially from this path right here. I mean, this is a good spot. Little narrow with the merry-go-round right here, but I mean, you could always kind of take this fence out or maybe remove these flowers over the off season and kind of get your equipment in there to get the train on if you would need to. So I think that works out okay. And then with it being Intamin, if it was a B&M, I'd definitely want to have more room for transfer. But with this being an Intamin coaster, I don't think it's nearly as big a deal to have more space for our transfer track, because Intamin just tends to have them be one long extra piece. Then we'll just kind of modify our land here a little bit. Give it a little more texture. Like that. There we go. Make that blend in a little bit. A little off topic, but we'll get there. Then we want our streamlined theoretical Intamin trains. And then our first train is blue and yellow for Funland, and the second train we're actually going to go yellow and blue for Joyland. So we are going to have two separate colored trains. There we go. Eventually. But there is our transfer track right there. And I think we have the last train park right there. So there is our 3-gap for our S-bend to slide over in place. And then our next break can go right there. And I think what I'm going to end up doing here, with car rides being kind of easy enough to modify, I think we're just going to shorten this turn a little bit. So this is going to be a modification of a park original ride with these convoy trucks. But this is something that I think would be simple enough to do for a park. So I think we will actually get that done. And then we're going to start heading back towards our station. I kind of want to give maybe one more drop. We can have an off-axis turn like that. And we can head back up. And look at that, we are all lined up. So I think even before going that high up, we'll do kind of our smooth turn here. Whoops. I want to go one lower. Right there. That's what I like to do. So we'll go up. It's like that. We get a little bit of a fake out here, which I think is okay. Adds kind of a little extra element. And then we get our turn into our brakes. After we get it kind of figured out here. So I have the design I like. Now it's just a matter of piecing it together. Just like that. So we're going to follow the Intamin trend of having a very short brake run, which is something Intamin did do in the early 2000s. So we're going to kind of fly into our transfer here a little bit. which I might want to actually try to avoid. I don't know, I really like the way this has come together, though. So I think I will try to leave it like this, mostly. But I don't necessarily... I like the transfer exactly where it is. I don't want to change this. But I also want to make sure we have enough room for our final break run. I mean, this is a lot of track length just to line it back up. So I think potentially I could get a little bit more creative with that. It's just a matter of getting back where we want to be. And I think this might be the way to do it. Just go with the two lower turns. And that gives us a lot more room for our final break. So let's run our test. Make sure it works. I got to retest convoy as well. But I think I'm pretty happy with that, actually. And then I'm not too stressed about having an extra block break here. Usually I'd want to have an extra block, but I don't think we need it just because we have the extra block break, like the break section here and then the lift hill. So we do have our extra block break. So we go through our mid-course into the lift. And then we'll drop off that lift. Into our turn. Head into our little hill. Turn around a little bit, over the lift. We're going to dive back underneath the lift. And then go into our diving turn. And curve back over. And plenty of speed heading into our final break run. Perfect. So we're going to try slowing down pretty immensely, pretty quickly here. So we're going to give this a shot. Because it is still pretty short. That short final break is pretty short. Let's see. I think that looks just about perfect. I'm pretty happy with that. So we get our final break. That goes to 4 right before the transfer, so it doesn't go into a bump too fast. But it does give us enough leeway to slow it down. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I think we'll go with that. We're going to call the coaster Sky High just because it's, I mean, for kids, this is pretty high off the ground, especially when you get to our, this hill and turn right here. I'm not a horribly big fan of having this much support space right here, but it is what it is. We'll roll with it. This is a pretty unique design. I've never done a family coaster like this. But I think as far as layout goes, I'm pretty happy with the final result. And the trucks are back. We can get those back open. But outside of that, I'm going to recolor this transfer track to the track colors. But I think we're ready to go for the fitting out. I'm pretty happy with this layout. Good speed. This turn might be a little bit fast, but it's for an early 2000s Intamin coaster. I think it does really well. So I'm going to go with that for our layout for this family coaster, and then I think we'll start fitting it out. So with fitting out, we're going to start over with the transfer track. I was originally going to put a building around it. Then I realized I only had 2 tiles in certain spots, and I had 3 in others. So I decided, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to go with a more open design. And then outside of just the tile issue, we were going to have a big ugly box right next to, you guessed it, a big ugly box. So you know what? we're going to avoid that altogether. We're just going to do some guardrails and catwalks and do it that way instead. Gonna use those kind of steel style ones. I can't remember their exact name in game, but those are usually a pretty safe bet. You've seen me do it multiple times throughout. Gonna do just those plain railings. Stole that straight from Chris Sawyer when he did the Six Flags builds for the scenarios way back in the day when RCT2 came out. And then originally gonna go with the custom support style, which they still end up being custom supports, but I just didn't think that look fit very well, especially when I started going to do the lift hill here. So I ended up getting rid of those. It was kind of a pain to do so. You see me trying to kind of get around everything. Not very fun. Would not recommend. I would just say, pro tip, get it right the first time. I'm seemingly incapable of doing that. But we went back, and we're going to use the wooden supports in-game, or more of a lattice structure. I would say I'd make these steel, but I know in-game they're labeled as wood. Beyond that, we're going to go over and get the catwalk for the lift hill all decorated, looking nice, matching the final brake run, although the railings on this are going to be blue rather than the white they are over on the brake run itself. I've said it before, I'll keep saying it every time I look at myself doing this in Fast. Very tedious process, but the final result does end up looking really good. With the lift hill being kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and then on the incline, I'd say it almost made it easier just because it was easier to track where the catwalk was on the tiles, because it can be kind of a pain to do that when you're 200 feet off the ground and you can't see it in one full frame when you're, at average zoom. But the catwalk ends up looking good using the wooden supports. Moving back over to the station here, I wanted to put some supports on the inside. I know I won't be able to see them ever, but just for peace of mind, I have those poles inside just for supports. And then we're going to work on this big ugly box that will become the station. Do end up reusing that queue for Mini-Mania, which I think is just fun to do. If you're doing a long build like this, if you ever remove a ride, just try to reuse part of it. I did it at Joyland with keeping just a tiny bit of White Cyclone's queue inside the queue building for it and what would become the exit for Xenon TLS, but I just love the detail. Every time I see through scenery, it just makes me smile knowing that there's a piece of, the history of that park there. And then we can redo the same thing here. So the parents waiting with their kids in line for this ride can, relive their nostalgia by standing in the exact same queue they remember standing in, but for a different ride now. And I had a couple different styles for this. Did not like that one whatsoever, so I ended up switching it up a little bit. I just could not get myself to like this building whatsoever. I know it's really probably not the best idea to say, I don't like the way this looks right away. But this could have been done better. But at the end of the day, I think it did kind of accomplish what I wanted it to. Just a big kind of station where you can get up top and then look around if you're in the station waiting. If I had to go back, or if I were to go back and redo it again, I would definitely reroute the queue a little bit, just because I wish there was more queue on the top floor so guests could get more time to look. Because, really, the only people that'd be able to see the surrounding area from that platform would be the employees. Which, on the one side facing the layout, probably not the worst thing. You know where the trains are if you look over that way, if you're, say, operating the control panel or something. However, if you're on the other side and there's just path everywhere and there's rides everywhere, it's pretty easy to get distracted. So, oh well, is what it is. Moving on to the restricted area fence, I just ended up fencing in the whole thing. I started out maybe just thinking about doing just the low to the ground sections, but I just decided, whatever. It's going to be a little bit easier just to do the whole thing, so I just ended up doing the whole thing. And then just kind of getting that path in front of the transfer track there all sorted out. But we're going to go back here, get you some detail work, put a ride sign in there, run the test runs, and then replace some foliage. And while you see me placing foliage, let's go over the final stats. So we ended up getting an excitement rating of 5.87, intensity of 5.23, and a nausea of 3.70. And the stats, the highest point is going to be that turn, that drop down over that little airtime hill. 55 feet, speed of 39 miles an hour, and a length of 3,041 feet. But that will conclude it for Sky High RCT Construction. Thank you for tuning into this one. I'm really starting to dig this live comm to build over, even though I'm recording this voiceover way after the build itself. But thanks for tuning in, and I will see you on the next one.